You are listening to Nerd Best Friends, a podcast that covers the nerdy conversations you're already having, or wish you could. It's the nerdiest thing you'll do this week.
This is Analese.
This is Rob.
And this is Dr. Intern Joan.
And we are your nerd best friends.
It's time to nerd out and review the newest Stephen King screen adaptation, The Long Walk. This is Nerd Best Friends, where we celebrate the conversations you're already having or wish you were. We're your nerdy companions on a quest through cosplay, comics, D&D drama, pop culture chaos, and all things wonderfully weird. If you're loving the ride, hit subscribe, follow, or share this episode with your fellow nerds, because the algorithm needs a little nudge from the nerd herd. Let's make Season 5 our nerdiest adventure yet.
This is episode 76, not mile 76. But before we get into all that, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. I'm excited to be podcasting. And I'm excited that Intern Joan is here.
Nerd turn.
Yeah, I haven't been around. Season 5 has been going great. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you back, Dr. Intern Joan. Nerd turn. Joan. Nerd turn. There we go. Well, let's just dive into this episode because we have a lot to talk about, which means talk nerdy to me. In alignment with what we're about to talk about, which is a Stephen King adaptation into a film, what's your favorite book adaptation to a movie or television show?
I've got a couple. I'll give you a quick one. There is a Marvel character, America Chavez. And on paper, she seems really cool. But if you read the comics, they suck. Not interesting. She's not interesting. You can't really get a good handle on like who this character is. And so that character, though, transferred over and was in the movie Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That's the best version of that character that there has ever been. And it was kind of funny because people saw that movie. They're like, oh, is America Chavez cool? And I'm like, no, she's not. You're good. Stay right there. But as far as a book being adapted to a film, my favorite example is The Princess Bride. The Princess Bride is a movie that is wonderful. It's beautiful. It's adventurous. It's fun. It's funny. It's got great timing. It's a classic. You know, so many nerds grew up like loving that movie. It's absolutely cool. And so, of course, like any good nerd, I'm like, oh, I love this book. I love this movie. It's based on a book. Let me go read the book. This book is kind of boring and it's not really as good and kind of a bummer. Not really a bummer, but it just like comparatively, they took that source material and made a really fun, cool, enjoyable movie out of what was just a fantasy book.
Right on.
What?
You saw the movie first and then read the book.
I saw the movie first when I was a kid and then like went back and found out that it was based on a novel. I think it says that in the credits, but whatever. And then I saw it on the library shelf probably in high school and read it. I'm like, man, that movie's great.
All right, Dr. Intern Joan?
I'm going to say, despite the controversy, I'm going to go with Harry Potter because there are also positive memories associated with it. So read the books first as the movies came out. It just spanned a long time. It was a pop culture thing, draws lots of people in, and we watch it every Christmas in my household. So.
The entire series?
Yeah, we start after Thanksgiving and do like one a weekend.
Nice. Do you have a favorite of the series of books? I know there's 7 books, and they turned the 7th book into 2 movies, a part 1 and part 2. So there's 8 films.
It's true. I think just the first 4, before it gets dark and weird. I don't like that part of the movies.
Okay.
The original 3, 4.
I love Deathly Hallows Part 1 on film.
Yeah.
It is so good how they captured just the danger gets turned up, and they captured it so wonderfully in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good calls.
Tangent. So you mentioned that like that wintertime, December, Christmas time movie watch tradition. I think that's probably like a very common thing that people do because I hear about a lot. So yours is Harry Potter. Mine's Lord of the Rings, which is also a novel adaptation. Before you answer, Analese, do you have a wintertime, Christmas time movie series that you go back to again and again? It has become a tradition.
What happens for us around the holidays is we do a whole, you'll hear about it at some point in my nerdiest thing I did this week, but we do a whole like Spooktober thing. We kind of get movied out by the time we hit Thanksgiving. So there isn't anything other than your traditional, what did we see all the time? Like, I have to listen to the Chipmunks Christmas album at some point, even though
right on.
It's annoying and not very good. And, you know, you got to watch Elf at some point. You got to, you know, Christmas Vacation at some point. Like, there's just those that are always on, but I don't have a tradition because I'm like movied out after October.
Okay. Well, what is your favorite movie adaptation of a book?
I mean, there are so many, and also just Stephen King. So my initial response is always Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption, because that movie is just so brilliant. Since we're talking about Stephen King today, I'll go another route. I'm going to say, since I just finished Dexter Resurrection, which is technically season 8 or 9 or 10 of the Dexter series, I'm going to say the Dexter series based off of Darkly Dreaming Dexter by Jeff Lindsay.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
The series and the books, I mean, there's like 7 or 8 books as well, but they are 2 different directions after the first season of the show, and the show gets really wonky, but man, they really corrected it. Showtime did a great job with this Dexter Resurrection and actually telling a real story versus the last couple seasons of the regular show. So I'll go with Dexter. The Dexter television series based off of the books by Jeff Lindsay. And man, horror fans and crime fans, true crime fans, if you haven't checked out the books, try them. And if you haven't seen the show, if you haven't watched Dexter Resurrection, you watch the regular one, I promise. It erases the really awful last 2 seasons, but check both of those out. But don't just take my word for it. Send in your deep thoughts, nerd questions, or talk nerdy to me subjects that you'd like us to cover by sliding into our DMs, or send those topics into podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. And now the part I've been waiting for forever, and I'm super excited to talk about. We're talking about The Long Walk, book by Stephen King, a.k.a. Richard Bachman, a.k.a. now a film. Let's go. It is a movie, and it's wonderful, and I love it. So we have a series of questions, and really we can tangent off all these questions, but we're going to start with how faithful the film is to the book. Now, Rob, I know you haven't read the book.
I have not read the book. I've heard about the book. Maria read the book. I was listening to another podcast where people were kind of talking about getting excited about this movie, and they had gone back and read the book. So, like, I kind of get that there's a lot of differences between the movie and the book. But yes, I'm going to ask Dr. Intern Joan to really step in here and carry the water for me on this one.
Well, heck no. Analese is going to be the pro.
Well, we're all gonna.
This. We're gonna supplement her knowledge and depth of expertise on this.
Well, I don't know about supplementing my knowledge, but let's go this way. Rob hasn't read the book, but has tangentially, you know, your wife read the book and you've heard a lot about it. Dr. Intern Joan, very impressed, read the book in preparation to see the film. And then mine is not necessarily deeper knowledge, but I read it at 14, and it was one of my favorite books for a very, very long time. And then I reread it, or I listened to the audiobook to prepare for the movie, just because it had been a really long time. I think I've read it 2 or 3 times. But yeah, it's the faithful adaptation. It is a relatively faithful adaptation. It makes some changes, which I believe I read Stephen King had a lot of hand in the story, at least the basis of the story. He didn't write the script. He wasn't in the room with writing the script. But in the book, some of the minor differences is there's 100 boys instead of 50. And I imagine that was just done for time and probably less gore, because that's a lot of death to deal with throughout the heaviness of the book.
Makes sense. So is it not a kid from every state?
No.
Like in the movie, it's really just like you are representing your state of
right.
the union. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Right.
Interesting.
So that's how they made it a little bit more dystopian-esque, is that you're chosen from your state. But this one is just you apply, and they talk about the almost audition process, or like there's a rigorous process in order to be chosen for this long walk. The other thing is the speed, right? So like in the 60s, when Stephen King wrote this as a teenager, late teenager or early 20s, it's actually been known that it's the first novel he's written, but it got put away and we get Carrie first instead. And so at the time in the book, he wrote that they had to walk 4 miles an hour. But I think we know now
pretty damn fast.
that would not necessarily be totally possible for the amount of time and the amount of miles that they walk. Other things, and I guess we should always start with spoilers. If you've not seen the film or read the books. I was going to
say, are we spoiling this movie?
Let's spoil the heck out of it because it's time. One of the biggest difference is the ending. And this was, I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later, so I don't want to get too deep into it, but the ending is totally different. Some of the characters, yeah.
Okay, because that was my big question about it. I was like, did the gay black guy with Michael Jordan's number win in the book? Because that seems pretty 2025 Hollywood to me, not very 1979 Stephen King.
They don't ever talk about race. He doesn't ever say what race any of the other walkers are. It's left up to your imagination. So that's that. That's part of it. You don't
interesting.
know.
Now, do they do the things with like the accent? So like the guy from Louisiana has kind of like a French Louisiana accent, and he's definitely like a black guy from Louisiana. Does he write, like, is that even a character in the book?
Yes. Almost. Go ahead, Joan.
They just mix and mash a bunch of the characters in the book into various characters to fit all 100 into the 50, and then even dilute it down more to make sure characteristics from like 7 guys made it into 1 guy.
Right.
Which felt disappointing to me.
I agree.
But because normal for a movie adaptation, right? Did it?
So part of the power of the book is getting to know some of these guys and their stories. So I will say the most disappointing to me is the character who is married. So they're all young men, and in the book, I don't think you have to be 18. There's 16 and 17-year-olds.
14?
I think you have to be 14 or 15 to apply.
Even worse.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's Hollywood reasons why they would choose 18 or older, right? But in the book, one of the like 18-year-olds or 17-year-olds is married with a kid on the way, and they portray him as being really physically fit. So the character Stebbins in the movie is actually portrayed as a little Weasley guy that they all just brush off from the beginning because he walks with a limp at the beginning and he looks like he's too frail to make it. And that becomes the surprise in the book. So as physically fit as Stebbins is actually this other character who is married to Kid on the Way. And he's like, I've walked dozens and dozens of miles in preparation for this. Like, I know I can go very, very far. And he's the one that ends up getting sick instead of Stebbins.
Oh, okay, because they put those two. Interesting. So they separated it in that sense, correct, but combined other things. Maybe it's not a very good, or not good, but faithful adaptation to the book.
I think faithful, again, just bare bones, just at the very premise of it. It's this dystopian long walk. You start to unravel and learn things about why the long walk exists. And what you have to realize now, standing outside of watching the film, this book was written as an allegory to Vietnam. To the Vietnam War.
Yeah, for sure. Well, That's the thing. Like, you could kind of get that, but because of like the draft and stuff, they like definitely make sure that that's still in there. But now it's an allegory for capitalism is bad.
Right.
In the movie. Yeah.
Right. And the story of what happens to Garrity's dad is a little bit different. In fact, you don't actually know what happens to Garrity's dad. All he knows is that his dad was vocally active against the long walk and taught Garrity things about being against it, and we don't have to do what the man says kind of deal. You get these little snippets of Garrity's story.
70s, very good, yep.
Yeah, but he just gets taken.
Yeah, he
disappears. And there's a word for it. Do you remember? It's like marshaled or something like that. I don't remember what the word is. They only mentioned it like twice.
But he was still a dissenter, and so Garrity's motivation is still to kill the major.
Nope, you never get that. That is purely the film.
Interesting.
Crazy, right? Yeah. We're really going to get into it. So characters were kind of combined. They talk about the little guy who I thought would be Stebbins, they call Owens, Olsen. And he is the one they say later is married, because that little pact they make, like, let's all promise to whoever wins is going to make sure his wife is taken care of, blah, blah, blah. Like, that happens, but it's not that character. I was expecting from the previews, without trying to like get into the previews too much before seeing the film, and like I was like, oh, that's got to be Stebbins. That's got to be Stebbins, because that's how they describe him, as a little dude like that. But so they mix a bunch of characters around, and then for me, the biggest omission is the married character. That was such a strong part of the timeline. You really start to hate Barkowitz a lot around that part of the timeline.
That was true to the book. He was a dick in the book too. Yeah.
They did that character well. Mm-hmm. Even when he cracks at the end of his story, that is true to the book. So there's a lot that's very faithful, and then there's a lot that they adapted. I don't know that there was Garrity's timeline and wanting to kill the major as his big prize. I think is the quickest and most convenient way to make you hate the major, because you get a lot of time in the book to really not like this guy and really understand why these boys don't like him either, without being explicitly violent. And, you know, the whole thing about him standing in front of his dad and shooting him, and like, I think that's just the quickest way they could have made us not like him.
Honestly cartoonish. Like, there's no reason why that guy who's in charge of the long walk is also the guy who goes door to door collecting dissenters. Like, it's just a cartoonish thing. Mark Hamill, like, this was the funniest thing, ironically funny, like, watching the film is like, I remember 3 months ago when you told me Mark Hamill was going to be in this movie, I was like, wouldn't it be funny if he just did the Joker voice the whole time and it was a cartoon? And lo and behold, this whole movie was like, let's go, boys! Like, it was the Joker voice the whole time.
Well, what I could tell you is, for some reason, Mark Hamill and that voice is exactly how I've imagined the Major to be since I read that book at 14. Just that grovelly and just not likable. And yeah, it's good. Well, let's talk. I want to get into the ending part, because Joan makes a note later, like, it was really the best moment in the film watching it with someone else who has also read the book. And I want you to have an equally surprised reaction. So let's go down our list a little bit and we talked a little bit about the characters in depth. Joan, do you have anything to say about the characters or the depth of them?
I'll just say that I missed the road and the walk, like in the towns, like the geography being part of it. You saw a little bit about how run down some of the towns were and how, like, you could see the capitalism. They're walking through these places that are desolate with few people. But there were a lot more people in the book. There were parties at certain towns that watched the people go by. There were, you know, Garrity runs off the road and he kisses a girl and, like, rubs up on her at one point in the book. You get none of that interaction with the geography and the people, which was disappointing.
I thought that was a weird choice as well, because in the book it lends to that dystopian. They're really here watching us to see someone die and cheer it on even. And other side to it, the human element to this dystopian fact is they talk about how they didn't touch on the food and stuff that they gave them, which is like paste, right? And they describe but they don't really
allergic to it.
Right. And the kid who drops his belt and doesn't have any food, like, all of that is really big deal. But they talk about at some points when there's crowds, how they'll, like, Garrity will finish a tube of food or whatever, and they'll just toss it off to the side. And people, like, clamor for it because they know they can sell. This was Garrity's. This was number 47's. They even talk about people scooping up waste.
Ew.
Right. And because they can
this book
sell
is gross.
it.
That's what I've heard from people who've read this book is like, I can't believe you're going to go see this movie, Rob. That book is so gross. It's just disgusting the whole way through. I had also heard that this was kind of, and I think you had said it, Analese, that this was like a very much a pre-genitor to a lot of the things like Hunger Games and Battle Royale, and this idea of creating child murder as sport, you know, maybe even like Running Man and stuff like that. But it was that you're right. Like, that crowd thing didn't have much to do with it in this movie at all. They're really just out there in the sticks.
Yeah. And it does two things, right? You lose that aspect of the dystopian game of it. What I appreciated about it is you gain the ability to see that the folks who put together the Long Walk really control everything. If they can control crowds from showing up and make it as desolate as possible, it rings a different part, like more against anti-establishment, more about anti-establishment stuff, right? The establishment is really, really made it so that crowds can't gather, is what I picked up from that, versus the book where they don't really care, and the Major actually likes, because they talk about the Major putting on a big show. He'll come by and, like, wave to people, and people love him to death. Like, you start to hate the Major because it's all a show for him and making him super popular with the majority.
I think a difference then for the film is the film isn't trying to put a lens on the audience like maybe the book is, or maybe like some other things, like I go to Hunger Games, which is like another thing. It's like it's putting the lens on the audience too, like, hey, aren't we also bad because, you know, we're encouraging this stuff with our views and our money and all that kind of stuff. This movie takes that out of it, right? Like none of the spectators or anything are like, I see, oh, that's us, that's shining a mirror on us. No, it's weird people out in the middle of nowhere just blankly staring, like that's not the point of it, right? The point is establishment bad. The point is not, hey, we're all feeding into this because we're bad too. That's completely out of it.
Smart move, because you have to create they're in this with only them. It is just them in the road. and removing the people also does that.
Yeah, and that was one of the comments I made on our notes too, as far as like character and stuff. This is a war movie, right? This is like, oh, we've got this band of young men and they're in a foxhole or they're, out overseas. And it's like, lots of those moments and like, I guess tropes of, in war movies of like the young men sharing about their family or, kind of getting to know each other. And then later, like making those connections and revealing under the layers and stories and those kinds of things. Like we've seen this before. This was just in a different genre. Yeah. I almost tangent too. I almost decided I was going to do the entire podcast like this because this is the movie. This is the whole movie. Yeah. And I was literally motion sick the entire time. You either got this shot. And I was like, because I where I like to sit is like right behind like that like large section where like the wheelchair like spots are or whatever. So like big curved screen and it's just the whole time like this. And I'm just like, whoa. Or sometimes they change the shot and it's a sideways shot and then it's like this.
What I will say is amazing, however, is that these guys actually walked hundreds of miles to film this movie. I mean, some behind the scenes footage now that I've seen is pretty amazing because they really actually did all that walking. I do appreciate how the big drone shots, if you will, would mark what mile they were on. I thought that was very good because that's very much in the book. In terms of characters, I was really the one like kind of race thing that happens in this book is there's two characters who we are led to believe are brothers who both have long hair and wear Native American garb. And one of their deaths is very symbolic anti-establishment, and it's very good. And they did not utilize this at all. That was one of the almost goosebump giving parts of the book is when this character and one other character, they basically protest in the middle of the long walk. And then that leads to the decision with a one kid who attacks the guys with the guns. So it spirals into this, like we all got into this with maybe the hopes of winning that big prize. But when they start to realize that there's no way they're going to win this thing and what happens to their camaraderie and their anti-establishment was really powerful with those two native characters that they had one look like with the long hair, but he never expresses his tribe. I don't recall.
He does. He talks about being like at the end before his death, he talks about like Dakota and like all that kind of stuff.
That's right. Yeah. But it's very brief.
Right. We went to see it with my husband, Analese, and my husband and I went. And Jeff was somewhat, I can't say offended, but they represented culture in the book. Stephen King represented culture in the book way better than they did in the movie. And
that was 40 years ago.
When he was doing prayers when he was getting shot, it kind of botched the reverence of culture. And in the book, I felt like it was better explained.
Really well celebrated as well. Well, how does this movie fit into larger themes, survival, cruelty, humanity under pressure? We've kind of talked about this a little bit. I'll say first, just a lot of Stephen King and what I have learned to enjoy and love about his writing. Yes, there's scary and there's storylines and there's death and there's horror stuff. But what he does really well always is creating characters that you understand and get to like very quickly. Even in his really thick books like It and The Stand that are thousands of pages long and Under the Dome, which has so many characters, you almost need to plot out who everybody is. But he gets you to understand them, care about them, or dislike them really quickly. And I think this book is exactly the same. You know more than just this small circle because there's double the amount of boys walking, but you get to know these characters very quickly and you get to start caring about their storylines very quickly. Or like in Barkowitz, like Barkovich, you get to hate him really quickly. He's kind of that kid that you don't want to like. So in terms of larger themes, for me, it's always the humanity in Stephen King works, which is very funny to think about because of what he writes. Yeah, that was my take on this.
Yeah, I just approached this movie like I'm sitting there watching it and I'm like, okay, like what is this movie trying to say? What is this movie trying to tell me? And it was like the message I got is capitalism is bad. Right. Which I felt like, oh, yeah, like if you think about the 70s just coming out of, the hippie movement and stuff like that always transfers. But that's kind of that's a popular idea right now of like late state capitalism and that kind of stuff, like earning money through competition. Can you believe it? Why wouldn't they just redistribute the wealth? It's like, because I'm not a commie. Jerk. But anyway, that's where I got. I was like, oh yeah, this is like very much in the times. Like this movie is anti-capitalism, and isn't that very Hollywood.
Yeah. And dystopian themes are really good. So Stephen King must have had a good eye for this. Like, dystopian movies are good. Let's make this now. Or he had good timing. I also think the use of men and adolescence, kind of that age range, it gave me a Stand By Me vibe. So it still brought out some of Stephen King's work in a way that kind of runs through his writings.
I'm glad. I think that's also like an interesting choice because, correct me if I'm wrong, what I understand from the book and what I've been told is there's a lot more of sexualization and a lot more talk of women and sex and things like that in the book, where the movie doesn't really address that, right? Because we don't want to see, in the movie, we don't want to see these boys as like skeevy pervs, right? We want to see them as all a little bit heroic so that it can be tragic when we lose them. Does that vibe with what you think too?
A little underlying, perhaps, homosexual theme, a little bit, maybe? Is that the right word?
Well, I mean, that dude's gay. Like, he kind of says, like, hey, do you have a girl back home? And he's like, very meaningfully looks at the guy. He's like, no, I don't have a girl. Wink at the camera. And then, like, some people, like, joke around, like, oh, yeah, say some rude homophobic things, and then we move on. But, like, yeah, that's very.
And he was like, I would fall in love with you. And then the landscape shows you a big old rainbow. Like, here it is. We're addressing this.
There you go. Thanks, movie.
Yep. Right after that conversation.
Funny thing is,
oh, that's funny. I didn't catch that, but that's just, who knows?
None of that is in the book.
Well, I'm sure.
They think and act just like typical teenage boys.
Yeah.
There's some very, I won't say they're explicit scenes, but, you know, you get the story from Garrity's point of view more than Garrity is the main character, and that rings true in this film as well. You know, Garrity gets aroused at some point, and they talk to each other about how they're dealing with that as they're walking days and days and days, because nature is going to take its course. And it's a lot more explicit. And then it's also very silly because Stephen King was young when he wrote this, younger, you know, late teens, early 20s. I think, I remember seeing online, someone said they were disappointed that the word jahoobies wasn't in it, because that's what they call breasts in the book. Look at that girl's jahoobies. Like, it's so 1960s. So there is that in the book. It makes it more believable that they're teenage boys. And I do like the comparison to Stand By Me, because when you read The Body, which is the novella that movie is based off of, and when you watch the movie, you're looking at 11-year-old boys and how they talk and how they think and how they act. And this movie also is right along in lines with that as well. Like, just his understanding of human nature, right? Circles right back to that. He understands how young boys would think when they're walking towards their deaths. It's so good. Okay. Does the movie resonate now? Does the movie resonate now, or does it feel timely? Well, something got deleted. Do you want to talk about it?
I mean, I deleted that. I don't know if it's important or not. I like to look for Easter eggs, and I don't know what Stephen King had rights over or not to make changes, but both of the characters, Garrity, and of course I forget his name.
McVries? Peter?
Yeah, McVries. Both of their numbers were prime numbers. Like, you can't divide them by anything. You can't do anything with them. And I was like, does this mean something?
I don't remember.
I think you nailed it. I think that's exactly what it means.
Yeah. I made it up, even if they didn't think so. It's a thing
that's
now.
A great catch.
I don't remember if we knew McVries' number in the book. I don't know that we really knew anyone's number except for Garrity's.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think that they called them out.
You hear the warnings, like you see the warnings in big capital text. That's how they do it. Warning, exclamation point, warning number, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that we ever quite connect anyone else's number except Garrity's.
Well, that's interesting because the number thing, like, there's so many opportunities to have symbols with numbers, like Joan said with prime numbers. That's a great example. The idea that when they do those warnings, it's just third warning, number 13. Like, you're just a number. Like, that's one of those other things. It's like, from the establishment side, you're just a number. From the humanity side, we're getting to know you when we call your name, right? Like, there's a lot there.
Yeah. Maybe closer to the end when it's down to just McVries, Stebbins, and Garrity. Do you know their three numbers for sure? But there's also 100. So a lot of for the first half of the walk, it's like, who was that? What number was that? Was that someone we know? There's a lot of that throughout the novel.
In the book, McVries is 61, but I thought he was 67 in the movie.
They're 23.
No, he's 23. He wears Michael Jordan's number.
20. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what you said. Yeah. So he's 61 in the book. But anyway.
Yeah.
I wonder what the number, if there's any actual thought behind it.
Hey, 47 plus 23 equals what? 70? I don't know if that means anything.
How old is Garrity's number today? As of recording, it's his birthday. I know he's over 70 probably.
Yes, he is. But hey,
it's so funny that they changed the ending and that other guy is the last one at the end.
Okay, let's talk about
because
the end.
I knew Breeze was gonna be the winner like the whole time.
Okay, you ready?
Okay.
In the book.
Yeah.
What happens to McVrees happens earlier. The last three are Stebbins, McVrees, and Garrity. McVrees gets to a point that he says, I cannot go on. Garrity, you're going to win this. And he sits down and is shot.
Yeah, that happens in the movie.
Ticket, but he dies. He gets his ticket.
That's just it for him. That's where he goes.
The final two are Stebbins and Garrity. And this is where Garrity's finally just had it with Stebbins. Stebbins looks like he's like Garrity. He's lost his shoes. He's starting to hallucinate. He just lost his best friend on the walk, which, again, no homosexual overtones in the book, but they definitely went that direction in the movie for any reason. Doesn't matter. This is where you learned that Stebbins is one of the Major's bastard children.
Right.
And it makes Stebbins very, very emotional. And this is the point where in telling Garrity this, the two of them they hate each other at this point. And it kind of renews Garrity a little bit, but Stebbins ultimately, between the two of them, the big dramatic, where Garrity tries to pick up Stebbins and says, no, keep going, they both start describing hallucinating and seeing like a figure up ahead of them. Now, at this point, they can barely talk to each other because the crowds are so massive. They're waiting to see who's going to win. And the Major's big tank is there and they're trying to communicate with each other. And Garrity sees this masked figure and Stebbins falls. He hears him get his ticket and Garrity starts running. And that's how the book ends.
Huh.
So they did that with McVrees. They had him keep walking. He kept walking into the... So that part was true, but it was just the wrong person.
Now, no, with McBreeze, he walks down an empty street. I interpreted that as soon as he shot the Major, they killed him.
He was killed.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's how he just, that was his kind of afterlife, just silence and then there's a bunch of things that you can infer on that too. It's he went through all that to die and his afterlife reward was another road. What a terrible thing. But I felt that silence and that empty street was telling me no, as soon as he pulled that trigger, he was just lit up.
And that's how the book isn't. I've interpreted the book the entire time too, that Stebbins gets his ticket and Garrity goes mad and probably also collapses and dies, right? He starts running after a hooded figure. Is it death? I don't know. They don't ever really, it's never explained, but that's the interpretation.
Seems very reasonable, yeah.
And you get that because in the book, Stebbins talks a lot more. He's just reeling off knowledge about the Long Walk. And he talks about, the guy who won last year, this is what happened. And the guy who won in, 2 years ago did that. He's just reeling off the knowledge, which makes more sense. He's been obsessed with this thing until he's old enough to do it. And that's why, really early on, I really liked knowing this part of the storyline because when he gets his little number lanyard from the Major to all of the other boys, he was like, good luck. Glad you're here. Good luck. And he looks at me and goes, good lucks.
Yep, I saw that. I noticed that too.
You didn't hear me, John? I went, oh, right? Like out loud, but we were eating.
But he didn't say good luck, son. He said, good luck, son.
Yeah, maybe without the laugh. But yes, he did. Gosh dang it, Rob. But so it's a big difference. So I remember I'm sitting there and Stebbins dies and I sit like this for a minute. I don't think you notice. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's McVrees and Garrity. What are they doing? And then when they started first, McVrees stops and I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the end. And I sat like this with my hand over my face. And then when they start walking together, arm in arm, and then Garrity's like, okay, you're going to walk on your own. And then he stops and Joan grabs me and we're both like, not
What?
Garrity. What is happening here? It was shocking knowing the book first. It was shocking, but I'm so glad they did it. They really tied together the ending so well. But that's the big difference. Garrity wins and
that
you're
is a
led to
huge
believe that he
difference.
dies.
That's the entire ending of the book. So that's But you
there's
thought it was successful. You liked it better.
It's not a better or worse because I liked getting into the characters more in the book. It's I really wanted Stebbins to be that guy and he was 60% that guy, right? It's kind of a cop-out how he's my dad and it was kind of like a side note where that was a really big, his existence is really like an extra narrator telling us what we need to know about why these boys are in the Long Walk and why it matters and what's the history. This is not just a one-off. This has been happening for years. You get that in the Hunger Games very quickly, much more successfully. right? Because you get thrown
there's
into
TV cameras and there's news anchors, and they like that's how they do that expository dialogue and stuff.
And you get thrown into that ceremony of the picking of the names right away. You don't get that with this, and you don't get that in the book either. The book starts exactly like the film starts, with Garrity in the car with his mother, and you're like, and the mom's not overreacting. Mom's just really quiet. Right? She's kind of like in shock. But in the film, she's like emotional. You don't have to do it. Don't go. And she does that in the book too, but it's not as emotional. You really don't know in the book what getting your ticket means until it actually happens. So you're like a third into the book, or maybe a quarter into the book, before you understand that 99 of these kids are going to die.
Well, 14-year-old you may have not known, but I knew going into it what the story
did you?
was. People may
did you know that
story.
Oh, yeah. Well, but you knew a little bit of the story from previews and stuff, right? Yeah. 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 The ending. Shock. And it's good. It's a good ending. I won't say one's better than the other.
Yeah.
It's a good ending, and I actually appreciate how they utilize that story. You know, Garrity has a little bit more purpose than in the book. In the book, you really don't. I mean, he's angry about his dad, and he brings up, you know, being able to care for his mom, but he really doesn't have much motivation other than being there and having nothing to do, which is also something they don't really talk about in this film.
In the book, he had his girlfriend Jan that he was trying to get to at the end too.
Right.
That was not in the movie.
No girlfriend in the book at all. Yeah, or in the movie at all. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Because as someone who had no idea how the entry and the ending was going to be and didn't know what the book was, I saw that McVree's character. I was like, there is no way this movie is shooting the black guy wearing number 23 on screen. It's not going to happen.
Well, your instinct was right.
Yep.
Were you still?
And then there was like
here's
the
question
crow Jesus. It's all like, hey, this movie's about black Jesus, right, everybody? I'm like, yeah, I get you.
Yeah, I didn't get that for that shot, but I see where you go. I see where your brain went on that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find tension towards the end when it was just the three of them left? Or were you really sold that McVree's was going to win?
Not to the point that it ruined, like we could jump ahead about like, you know, final thoughts on this movie if you want. But like, as far as that goes, no, it did a good job. Like, this movie is very successful at a lot of things, right? This movie, like I said, the art made me feel the way, like, as intended, right? It is successful the whole time. I was uncomfortable the whole time, especially the motion sickness. Like, literally, I was like, how much longer is this scene gonna go? Which is also successful, right? Because it's like, those scenes are long. The acting is real. That dialogue and like everything is like, hey, this is like a real movie with real actors reading lines and making you believe it. Like, very successful on that. So there's just this uneasy feeling every time a death comes up. It's like, you know, like very tense like that. And so I think the ending was successful as well. Like, they nailed it, like the cinematography of them walking and, okay, I'm gonna let you go, and then boom, and he like fades into the background and stuff. Yeah, it's great. I will say, like, it also wasn't like cheesy, and like there were no shortcuts. Like, I can say, like, I didn't get goosebumpy or teary-eyed at any of the deaths, I think, because everything was just so like uncomfortable and tense the whole time. But that also kind of says like, hey, we weren't going to cut any corners and do anything like really over the top to get that tear-jerky moment. It's just like, nope, this is how it happened kind of thing. So I would say very tense, and I think very effective at the end, even though, because, you know, you have your guesses, but I wasn't like so sure that I'm like, oh, screw this, I know what's going to happen. It wasn't like that kind of telegraph. Yeah. It was just like, okay, like there were a lot of, like, the hints were pretty big, movie.
Yeah. You know what scene was, so I saw a preview saying they did heart monitors to some of the screeners, let's talk about the marketing for this film. First of all, is probably, I think they surpassed Superman in the marketing for this film. Was
interesting.
Genius.
Anything was better than Superman, in my opinion. What we know.
I'm talking about the marketing. The marketing, Joan. The
only marketing I saw was the screenshots you two sent me. I had not seen, and granted, I don't like watch a lot of TV or whatever. I saw nothing from this except the news article you guys sent about like treadmills in the theater thing. That was it. I saw nothing.
So they invited a bunch of
ad during football, not a single social media post, nothing.
No, but that's what makes it brilliant. They didn't spend a ton of money like Superman did for all of those big time posts. Instead, they attacked the generation that's more on social media than anything else. The generation who's alike in age range to those who are in the long walk. So they invited a bunch of influencers into those preview screenings where they had to walk on a treadmill at 3 miles an hour, or They had people dressed up like the Major, and they physically removed them if they stopped walking, so they couldn't see the end of the film. They did a whole series of screenings where they had people on heart monitors, and they showed like this heart rate test for a bunch of thriller films, and this one surpassed it. I think they were at like 203 beats per minute or something like that. Like,
well, sure,
the heart rate of this one. No, but people who were just sitting and watching. Not the treadmill. So they had a whole set of screening of people on heart monitors who were just sitting and watching. And they did the whole like night vision cameras with people and their reactions to the film. Like, they sent people backpacks just like they give out, full of things, and like a rule book for I mean, it was genius how they marketed this film for that age range, for that 18 to 40 or whatever. Like, they did a really good job with this. But what I will say, as I was watching it, I was thinking about that heart rate ad that I had seen, and I'm like, there's nothing like, there's some times that I clenched and watched, I don't want to watch this dude get shot in the head kind of deal.
Yep.
The uphill scene is so brilliant. I actually just kind of sat like this and covered my eyes a little bit. It was so intense, and it's like that happens twice in the book, and that's a convenient way for Stephen King to have just eliminated a lot of people all at once. And when it's 100 boys, they get to the first uphill and like 20 of them are gone, and they get to the second uphill and half of them that are left are gone. They did such a good job with that moment, because in the second uphill is when Garrity has 2 warnings because he's seen his girlfriend. He actually doesn't say hi to his mom. He sees his girlfriend, and he's got 2 warnings, and he's got 3 warnings, and he's like seconds away from getting his ticket, that he has to almost literally jog up the hill to make sure he survives past that moment. And they did such a good job with that.
That was another scene that they would do that was very motion sickness for Rob, where it was just down like a very tight shot of the road, like moving, and just like the tips of the feet coming from the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, it was intense. Let's talk about success in comparison to other Stephen King adaptations. What do you say, Joan?
All right. Well, the original Carrie is my gold standard comparison. I think that was the best and only Carrie, in my opinion. And while the book and the movie of The Long Walk were different, I think it matches up to the style and the storytelling that's what I think.
What do you got, Rob?
I don't know much about Stephen King, so I will just offer fun fact. There are 286 uses of the F word in this movie.
Did you Google that?
I did, because it was a lot. And I was like, I wonder if somebody did a count. And of course, some nerd on the internet had already done a count, and there was 286 of the F word in that.
There are a lot of
more
uses
than
of that.
One. That's like 2 a minute. The movie's only an hour and 45 minutes.
It's amazing. There are a lot of F words in the book as well. That's what was successful about it being depiction of the age, right? Same thing in Stand By Me. When you watch Stand By Me, it's PG-13 because those kids are swearing left and right, and they do in the story as well, because that's what 11-year-olds do when they're not around their parents. I'm going to say this is up there with Stand By Me and The Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption. This is a very good adaptation of a film that also, with Stephen King's help, or at least his eyes on it, helps actually improve. I think this ending is an improvement. I think Garrity's storyline is an improvement. I just missed the other characters, but it's not a miss in terms of adaptation. So I think it's up there. I think the friendship between Garrity and McVrees is similar to Red and Andy in Shawshank. You really learn to care for their bromance a little bit, and for each of them individually as well as what they mean to each other. I thought that was very comparison. And so it's up there for me in terms of adaptation, which means read or watch first.
Okay, look, if you're a fan of Stephen King, you should do both. I kind of wished I had only read the book or seen the movie, and not both, because I'm conflicted about it.
Okay. Do you have a say? I know you haven't read the book, Rob, but do you have a say on whether?
Not really. No. Like I nothing about the movie made me want to go read the book. So
that's fair.
Maybe like Joan, like maybe just one is enough, especially if they're so different.
I say both, and it doesn't matter which order. I don't think it's a read or watch first. I think if you see the movie and you thought it was worth reading, then go read it, or vice versa. There are some books that you should read first before a movie. Definitely. And to me, this is not one of them.
If you don't read the book, you don't get gems like JFK being quoted at the very beginning of the book by saying, I would encourage every American to walk as often as possible. It's healthy and fun. Or a few pages in where they're like, let's hit the road. And you're like, there are some gems in the book if you like that sort of thing, like the tongue-in-cheek
and
stuff.
If you want to learn more about the characters, read the book. But to me, I would say the same with Shawshank Redemption. If you see the film first, go read the book. It is worth reading that novella. Same with The Body. The Body that became Stand By Me is a really great novella to read. In fact, those who aren't into super horror Stephen King's stuff, the book Different Seasons that has The Body and Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption is one that I recommend, because you get some of that Stephen King-esque twist to things, but you get that like human element that he writes so well. To me, it's worth doing both, but there's not an order. So let's focus on just the film. Since we're talking about the film here, go see it in the theater, rent it, buy it, skip it. This is Dr. Intern Joan's contribution to our podcast, is asking this question. Did I ask it right?
Well, I'm the watch or read first because I'm the book person. But yeah, go to the theater, rent it or buy it. For me, I'd say rent it. I don't watch horror movies. That's why I think I'd rather read it. But I don't want to see all those previews. I don't want to be in a theater with other people seeing their reactions to these kinds of things. If you're going to watch it at home. So you can take breaks and not get sick. If you get sick, you can do whatever. You can be more comfortable at home.
Maybe on the smaller screen, you wouldn't have been as motion sick, Rob.
I definitely think so. In fact, I even debated going and sitting up higher in the theater so it would be a little bit smaller of a screen. I will start with saying that, I think I mentioned it before. This movie is successful. The art is successful at making me feel as it was intended. It's a well-made movie, despite some of the goofiness and telegraphing of stuff. That's in every movie, right? We could nitpick the rainbow scene or the Joker voice or whatever, but all in all, it's a successful movie. Now, for me, that's a skip it, because like Joan, I don't really sit through horror movies. This is definitely kind of a suspense movie, and it makes you feel that suspense and that uncomfortableness the entire time. And I'm just not really into that so much. There's no fun in this movie at all. There's no big action scenes or cool CGI or whatever. That's not what this is about. This is a movie that is about the acting. This is a movie about those relationships and things. I think the actors did a phenomenal job. Again, super, super successful. But yeah, in the theater, I was literally motion sick. Not terrible, but just that uneasy feeling the whole time of the thing. And because I knew this was for the podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to stick through it, especially after the first death, I think was really the most gruesome.
Shocking.
Shocking. Lets you know, hey fam, this is what you're in for. Yes. And I was like, oh my God, am I going to walk out of this movie? And I was like, no, I have to stick it through for the stupid podcast. So after the movie, I was kind of walking out with everybody and kind of overheard some people talking or whatever. So believe it or not, I actually talked to strangers about the movie, walking out.
My gosh, look what we've done.
Because the guy in front of me was walking with, I think, his son, and he's like, man, talk about the feel bad movie of the summer. And I was like, yeah, it was kind of rough, huh? And then somebody else over here, kind of overheard us, and he was like, yeah, I feel everybody was there was just kind of a resounding after the movie. And I guess that's what the movie was trying to do.
100%. That's the point. That's the point of the book too. That's how you're supposed to feel.
I didn't feel like it. Yeah, there's just nothing. There's nothing inspiring of oh man, these kids really stuck it to the man. Or there's no triumph. There's no winning. There's no fun. There's no nothing. It's just a bad time for everyone in the film and for me. So I'm going to say skip it.
I would have been the read-only part of this podcast had Analese not suggested we go together when we were, I was more excited about doing a thing with her and my husband and experiencing the theater than the movie was the extra part for the podcast.
But I mean, Joan, even though I was super ready for this movie from the moment, every moment along the last 30 years, they've announced they're trying to film adaptation, because it did happen a few times before this. Yes, it was about the experience, the fact that we were in the same area for our friend's wedding, and it had just come out that day, and we found that super fancy theater where they come and serve you fancy food and fancy-ish food and keep coming in and checking in on you during it was
Did you really fancy. Enjoy eating your fancy food while watching people literally go to the bathroom on screen?
Honestly, I was worried about that.
Nasty.
We got there 30 minutes early for that very reason. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to eat once this starts, because if it's Definitely as gruesome not. As the book, but I had delicious food, and I was munching on some. I was stress munching on popcorn for some time. Oh, I got to put this popcorn down because I'm just kind of But it was a great experience. If there was a theater, they have memberships for this theater, and if there was a theater like it nearby me, I would absolutely buy a membership, because you walk in and there's a bar, and they had a pool table and a little seating area with a fireplace. nice. And then
like a little nightclub.
Yeah, it was crazy. And you go in and your seats have like a rolled up warm blanket and they're pods. So like you really kind of, you can see that there's other people in front of you, but like it's really privatized and you can recline and the table turns and you push a button and they come to you and like, what do you need? And like the food was good. Like, I mean, it was an amazing experience, but I was as excited about that, Joan, as much as I was seeing this movie. To Joan's credit, at some point after the first or second preview, she turned to me and says, if I have nightmares because of these previews, I am blaming you. And I'm like, she's like, I don't understand why these previews. I'm like, we're seeing a Stephen King movie. They think you're a horror fan. And she's like, and that, I mean, I didn't want to see those previews either. Because there's good horror and there's bad horror. That's all bad horror.
It could be fine. But I will agree. Like, I was it's like, I guess I'm surprised every time. I looked, because I kept checking my watch. There were 21 minutes of previews for this movie. So I was like, oh, this movie's an hour and 45 minutes. Like, cool. Like, slam this out in an afternoon. And it's like, no, it turned into over 2 hours in the theater because of sitting there. Okay, I guess they got to make their money, but I got to learn from this and not show up to movies on time, I guess.
Only reason why we went early is to get food.
Yeah,
and we wondered the same thing when we thought, oh, it was a 90-minute movie. But then we're like, why does it say 2 hours and 7 minutes on the screen outside? We're like, what is going to happen?
I mean, we cut it close to the start of the wedding. We went to I was hoping to go to to 11 a.m. or noonish showing. It was 1:30 and we had to be there by 5:30. So like we had to both rush. I mean, it was fine. I still got to the wedding before almost anybody else and all that stuff. But I didn't have to drive as far as you guys did back to your hotel. I could walk. I purposely walked to and from.
And in true real life IRL experience, Analese walked to and from the movie theater.
And I'm glad I did. I needed to process it. Like, well, that's on our TikTok. Go watch the video of me walking, and you see, like, I just uploaded that TikTok, and I'm just smiled. Like, I just saw the long walk. Like, it's so cheese.
Analese, what do you like about the movie? Because I know you're going to say, like, go see it, all caps. But what I'm interested in is, like, okay, so you want people to see this movie. What do you want them to see? What do you like about it?
My problem with dystopian films like The Hunger Games is you get that really cheese bow-tied ribbon happy ending of what's her face. I almost said Prue. That's my character. What's her name in The Hunger Games?
Katniss?
Katniss, thank you. Katniss and what's his face, and there's the little child, and they're living their peaceful life. Like, I know they tore down the establishment, and that's the other thing. They tore down the establishment. Everything's so good now, and we were able, damn the man, and dystopian realities are not that. And I really appreciate in the book, as a 14-year-old, this is real life.
This is not real life.
We may get, I mean is we may be up against things as a society, within your internal self, within your lifespan, you're going to be dealing with things that you ultimately can't beat, but you can fight. And what I like about this is that realism. Peter McVries does not survive this film. He shoots the major because his friend said, this is what we need to do to fight against this thing that happens every year. And if we did that, it will end and we will save the lives of hundreds of boys after us. We don't know that that's the case. We don't get that pretty bow tie. And
but also,
that's
of
what
course,
I like
that's not the case, right? Obviously, it's bigger than one man, but they don't get it because they're kids, right?
But they have to change everything, right? Because the whole premise is you're going to get everything you want. And he even says, give him the gun. He's not going to do anything with it, right? Their rule is the one survivor gets whatever they ask for. Mm-hmm. And they have to obey that. So at some change is going to be affected, but we don't know what. And that's what I like about it. Because that's real. We're not going to get the neat, pretty bow tie at the end. And with Garrity, I remember being 14 and being ticked. Am I supposed to guess what happens to Garrity? An optimistic 14-year-old, and he's like, oh, he must have survived, but probably just went a little bit crazy. And they probably stopped him and took him to the hospital, right? Like my brain at 14 wanted that pretty bow tie ending. And as I've aged, I actually appreciate more that we don't get that. And I'm so glad we didn't get that bow tie ending. That's what I like about this. This is what it's like when you're dealing with an internal struggle, a real struggle. Us as a society with struggles. The reality is, I mean, think of Rogue One. They all have to die in order for Princess Leia to get that thing. And that's real. Granted, that ends with hope, but this ends with, imagine if Rogue One ended when the planet explodes. We know what happens because Star Wars eventually happens, but without that neat, pretty bow tie to me, the most human, real element to this film and this book.
Well, and that's similar to Handmaid's Tale if you read it or watch it. it is ongoing because there's a sequel coming out that is after the events of Handmaid's Tale of how it survived that portion. So you're still surviving a thing. So I agree that this is...
Yeah.
I think a lot of people...
I like the ending. Both endings.
That's a great analogy. I'll just say I think that's why a lot of people were upset with how the Handmaid's Tale TV show ended, because it didn't get that bow. It's still ongoing. She still doesn't have her daughter. They still have to fight this thing. But the show had to end, and this movie and this book had to end, but it doesn't need that. I appreciate more that it doesn't have that pretty ending.
Yeah. And we need people uncomfortable in the real world.
No, I appreciate that. I think having listened to you and then looking back at it, it's like, oh yeah, the best part of that movie is the end, because it is rare and maybe courageous these days to have a movie that doesn't end with a happy ending and doesn't end with a definitive answer. And I think it is a better, it's the art is successful. I think it is more successful that it is a tragedy and that it leaves questions at the end.
And my hope is those people that walked out, it's like, this is the feel bad movie, because we as humans don't like that mirror being put up in front of us. We are uncomfortable with it. So my hope is people can go be uncomfortable, because it helps you grow as a person. It helps you grow in empathy. It helps you grow in understanding the world around you and how we as individuals can impact the world around us on big scales or small scales every single day. This part of it that you're getting from me right now is what I pick up from Stephen King books. Because ultimately it's about the human element. Carrie, while about her telekinesis and her going mad, is really about what happens to a human when you disregard that they're different. Because Carrie White is different, and she's treated so horribly that when she discovers her telekinesis, she snaps and turns it to murder. And then you have things like It. It has so much human element in it that the monster that is Pennywise thrives on that human element and the ability for adults to look the other direction. All of this stuff is so human and so real and wrapped up in Stephen King horror that I think it gets dismissed really easy. But that's what I love about it. Be uncomfortable so that we can grow, or just continue to be uncomfortable. It's okay. We're human. We should be able to be uncomfortable. And
that's why entertainment is made, right? So that people can put a bow on things and feel good about themselves and escape. That's why we go to movies and stuff.
Yeah. But I love it. I say go see it. Go see it in the theater. Be uncomfortable and grow as a human being. And be lucky that as of right now, we do not have anything like this in our existence. So back to the things we love and are comfortable with. Hey, Joan, what's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
I read advanced reader copies of books because I want to contribute.
Imagine reading so many books. You've read every book in the world, and you have to read books that haven't even come out yet because that's the only books you can find.
I still have a to-be-read list, like 50 books long still, but I like to give back a little bit and contribute to authors I like and discover new authors and help them spread the word about their books. But I've signed up for so freaking many of them. That's all I'm reading right now. They're published between December and March, and I had 6 of them prior to the wedding.
Wow.
And you have to keep your rating up on NetGalley or you don't get approved for more. So I'm like,
whoa. Tell me about NetGalley. What's going on here? This is the long walk of reading. You're gonna get your ticket punched if you don't keep up.
That is the more that I think about it. Yeah, you have to keep your rating above 80. Or you're frowned upon from getting approved to read more books. So I got to read some books so I can get more books. It's the long walk of books.
It's funny because you put in the notes, I got approved for way too many ARCs. And I'm like, ARCs?
Advanced reader copies.
Advanced reader copies. And so then, will we see your name on book jackets? This is the read of the year, Dr. Intern Joan.
Snap.
You submit it on their website. Maybe if it was that astute, but it's never going to be that astute. But then when it publishes, they tell you, hey, log in and post it to Amazon and Goodreads and Barnes and Noble. Then they just cut and paste it for you. You just have to log in and approve that it'll go on all the sites.
Got it. That's
so any bangers? Anything coming out that you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Everybody watch for this book to come out.
In 2026, yes, maybe I'll revisit it or I'll do a must read of the first half of the year. I'm doing a lot of historical fiction, and the one I just finished about book bans in the early 1900s eerily echoes right now. So I was like freaked out reading. I was uncomfortable. So I really enjoyed that.
Wow, maybe in the new year we have a Dr. Intern Joan book recommendation episode. Here's what's coming out. But don't just take my word for it.
That's a lot of pressure.
That's two.
If you do it 3 times, LeVar Burton will show up.
Let's go. Hey, Rob, what's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
The nerdiest thing that I did this week is I have been reading the Absolute series from DC Comics. And what these are kind of Elseworld retellings, alternate universe, not in canon stories of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Which is kind of the first thing that I don't like about it, is when you call something Absolute Superman, that kind of leads a reader to think, oh, this is like the definitive edition of Superman. And it's absolutely nothing. It's like completely different, playing with all of the things. It's like, okay, you know all this stuff about Superman, but what if we changed all these weird different things and made it very cool? And they are very cool, though. So if you go in knowing, like I did, because I had heard about it, like, oh, this is some like completely wild, different story, but Batman's in it kind of thing. They're really fun. The Batman one is very, like, he's just this giant hulking dude, very much like Return of the Dark Knight type of Batman.
Okay.
But what's interesting about it is it's from the perspective of Alfred. And Alfred's not a butler in this. Alfred is like an MI6, like commando spy from England. And he's been stationed in Gotham City, and he's watching, and like, he's kind of the detective watching this kid, Bruce Wayne, like become Batman and take on, this evil syndicate. The evil syndicate is like a super crazy cool idea. Basically, it's a Bitcoin scheme of crime. They call them the party animals, and you can pick up a mask, and it's like an animal mask, right? So it could be a rabbit or a fox or whatever, but you put it on and it gives you this like virtual heads up display, and everything you look at, it gives you a crime and how much money this thing will pay for you to commit this crime. So like, you look at a liquor store and it's like, break window, steal, break window, light it on fire, $1,500. You could like look at somebody else and it's like, police officer, murder, $2,000, Commissioner Gordon, murder, $500,000, or like whatever. And so people are picking up these masks, and their greed and anonymity of like both the mask and the idea of cryptocurrency is just spreading this terrible crime wave across Gotham. So that's a really cool book. The Superman one is also very different. In this one, he doesn't come to Earth as a baby. He comes to Earth as a teenager who saw Krypton explode, and you get a lot of the backstory of, very much of like the dystopian Krypton that led to the thing. It's complete. His powers are completely different. Like, he's still strong and stuff, but like his cape is a big thing. The cape is made out of red kryptonite dust, and he has more powers. Like, so it's very different and very interesting and cool.
Is that like trauma-filled Superman?
Yes, he's very like quiet and emo teenager, not
that's
yatata, like
not
very, very interesting. But then my favorite is Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, instead of growing up on Themyscira and becoming an Amazon, she's actually plucked from Amazon as a baby and put in hell by Hecate, like basically so Circe, from like, it's all Greek myths, right? So Circe has been banished to hell, and Hecate gives Diana the baby to Hecate. So she's not Wonder Woman of the Amazon. She's Wonder Woman of hell. And this bond that they have, because Circe like takes her in and loves her and is like a great mother, but has to build her like the different weapons. And there's a lot more like Greek gods and stuff like this. And of course, Steve Trevor shows up, just like in the Wonder Woman story, but them in hell and her falling in love and like the sacrifice she makes and then goes to the world. And like, she's not a fish out of water in this one. She is a like warrior, but she's still like a very good person. It's not like Wonder Woman from hell. She's the bad guy. No, she's very much the good guy, but she's just forged in this place where she had to fight monsters. She's got this gigantic sword. It's awesome. So it's really, all three of them were really cool. If I were going to recommend them specifically to you guys, Joan, I think you'd enjoy both the Superman one and the Wonder Woman one, because I know like it's the opposite of the Superman you don't like. Analese, I 110% think you're going to love the Wonder Woman one. So look forward to.
The Batman one sounds really good too.
The Batman one was really good. I really loved the bad guy, and it was like kind of scary and stuff as far as that goes. They were all really good. So I read the first volume of each of those, and I recommend them. Like, if you know what you're going into, like, this is just going to be completely off book, for these heroes. Very enjoyable. All three of them.
That's super cool.
It has a Marvel what if
very
vibe.
Much. Yes, exactly that kind of thing. Multiverse story of like, we'll take these characters and it's like, all of this background, and that helps inform you both of like, oh yes, of course this is true, but also, wow, they did that completely different. What a interesting idea. Wonder Woman rides a skeletal Pegasus.
Haha, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's
that's
like
cool.
an undead Pegasus. And Steve Trevor's like, what's its name? And she's like, Pegasus? And he's like, you named your Pegasus Pegasus? She's like, no, there's only one Pegasus. This is Pegasus. Like, because it's the Greek god, the whole thing. It's awesome.
Right. That's cool. That's cool.
Goodness. What about you, Analese?
Hey, all right. In 1973, these two unknown musicians named Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham moved from the Bay Area to Los Angeles to try to make it big in the record industry. They get signed to a record label and produced this album called Buckingham Nicks. Mild success. A lot of things were happening in the industry at the time, but this grifter drummer named Mick Fleetwood happens to hear a track while they're looking for a guitarist for their English-based blues band called Fleetwood Mac, and gets played a track from this album and hears this guitar player and says, I must meet this guy. And so he meets this guy, and Lindsey says, well, I'm with Stevie and we're a duo, so if you want me to join, you get both of us to join. And they all meet together New Year's Eve about 1974, and the sky's open. We have what we know is the most famous compilation of Fleetwood Mac. The Buckingham Nicks album is a phenomenal album. I do own one from 1973. I have digital tracks that our friend Coach, when we were like in college, helped me rip from the album to a CD, and then I put it in iTunes when you used to be able to upload stuff into iTunes.
From the record to CD?
From the record to a CD.
MP3? Oh,
right.
Man.
So you can hear, it's like, it's twingy, and you can hear the record pops, and it's cool because I love this album. Well, this week, for the first time since 1973, Buckingham Nicks was re-released. It's been digitized. They have it out on CD. They have it out on streaming. They have new digitized records, which I'm not going to buy because I still have the one from 1973. One of the most exciting things to happen this month, like September's been the month of Analese because The Long Walk came out last week and Buckingham Nicks was re-released for the first time in 52 years. And it has been streaming nonstop in my car, in my ears, in the house. I'd be listening to it now if it didn't get picked up by our microphone, but I've probably listened to that album probably 7 or 8 times since it was released 2 days ago.
So with this release, is it all like digitized and improved and like lossless audio and all that kind of stuff?
It is gorgeous. It is way surpassed, and this is no disrespect to Coach, it's way surpassed that rip from the album to...
Well, of course.
CD.
Because it's 30 years
gorgeous.
of digital tools have been invented since then.
Yeah. But it's beautiful, digitized and upgraded and all the things that we can do now to old loop tape recordings. And I'm so excited. I'm going to listen to it again when we're done recording today while I'm like folding laundry and stuff. It is such a good album. If you are even a remote fan of Fleetwood Mac, you can hear early hints at where they go once Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham join. It's really phenomenal. That's the nerdiest thing I did this week was listen to this on repeat over and over and over.
Awesome.
I want to say, Joan, thank you for reading this book and adding it to your arcs, even though this is not an arc. Rob, I knew 100% this was not a movie that you would watch, but I am thankful that you did. And now next season you get to pick, and I owe you one on this, but go see The Long Walk.
I would never do this to you, Analese.
Lies. Pack your dice bags and keep Portland weird. Next week on Nerd Best Friends, we're taking you on a nerd travels adventure through the quirky, geeky heart of Portland, where comics, gaming, and weirdness collide. And where Dr. Intern Joan lives.
Dr. Intern Joan's coming back for that one.
Woo!
Of course she is. She lives in Portland. All right.
She is Portland weird.
She is Portland.
Accepted.
Before you go, smash that follow or subscribe button. Drop us a 5-star rating if you're feeling the nerd love. Find us on social media at NerdBestFriends or email us podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Help us grow the nerd herd and keep the geeky goodness rolling. Next week's gonna be fun.
Thanks, everybody.
Walk to you later. let's just dive into this episode because we've got a lot of